My name is Paul Heffner. I'm the founder of Adamas Asset Management based in Hong Kong. I'm talking about private credit. Our core business is focusing on funding growth companies, but part of that is also looking at funding and unlocking value that we find in many companies based in Hong Kong. Our business, we have a joint venture with Ping An Capital in Hong Kong. Ping An Capital is the investment arm of Ping An Group. Ping An Group is, they've got literally $1 trillion of assets under management, 143 million customers, and 1.7 million employees. So it's a huge partner to have in China. We've had funds, we've over a 10-year history. We've funded 80 companies, been to court in China. We've been successful in the courts of China. I can get into the more details of that in a little bit. But I do think that the most important thing that we see is this opportunity for finding value and unlocking value is really important. Emphasize that you need to have local partners on the ground, teams. I have teams in China, teams in Hong Kong, teams in Singapore, partnerships in Thailand, as well as partners that we have in Indonesia. The most, I would say, one of the things that is, if I just move through this a second. Macro picture. We look at the ASEAN region. There's a great book called Leadership 2030. In that book, they state that in 10 years, 2/3 of the middle class will be in Asia. So if you just think of that number, it's staggering. Then through this, what we look at is the growth forecast. China growth is off the charts, but then when you also then go into Indonesia, you're seeing phenomenal opportunities there. Cambodia, Vietnam, Malaysia. SMEs are starved for capital, and SMEs generate on average between 60 to 90% of GDP. Employ between 60 and 90% of the workforce, and also are a significant source of tax revenue.
Sorry, what does that stand for?
Small, medium-sized enterprises. Okay. And then I'll just skip to this next slide. The overall funding gap for small, medium-sized enterprises is across the region $2.7 trillion US. There's 271 million SMEs in China, in Asia. And this is the group where people are starting to pay attention to. As an opportunity for private credit, I was, the last 3 days I've been up in Canada speaking to some of the larger pension funds. The private credit space has really grown. When I started the firm 10 years ago, people, I'd come and say, I'm doing private credit, I'm doing China, and half the audience would walk out the door. So now it's completely different. And we're really seeing, again, in the next year, we serve on AIMA's Alternative Credit Council. The projection is that private credit will go from $600 billion to $1 trillion, and much of that growth will come from Asia. So this is an opportunity where you're looking at, again, structures where you're putting in senior mezz, junior mezz, as well as special sits opportunities. Through this is where I think, again, unlocking the value is very important. Because if you're looking for a company, and it could be a Chinese company that's looking for expansion, and I can give you an example of that, or you're doing a corporate acquisition, or you're doing a pre-IPO financing, the banks are just stepped away from that market. So where we've done a PIPE transaction in last year, the company is the largest waste-to-electricity business in China. EBITDA in 2017 was $90 million. EBITDA in 2018 is over $100 million. This business is growing. They have 20 factories up and running. They're expanding to India and Brazil. They listed in Singapore with great expectations, and unfortunately, the stock price trades at 5 to 6 times. The peer group in Hong Kong trades at 16 to 18 times. The peer group in China trades at 32 times. So what we've done in our PIPE transaction is that we are working with the second largest shareholder. We're in the process of restructuring the company, and we'll privatize it later this year, and then we'll do a relisting in Hong Kong or mainland China in 2020. So those are things where, again, we find value. The businesses are generating significant cash flow. They have also strong government support because, again, as a leading waste to electricity business, they also do receive subsidies from the government, as China has committed $360 billion to clean tech. So this is, again, where we have, government support, we have a strong business, we have great leadership, and again, it's just a market opportunity to delist and relist the company. And then I'd say finally, the last parts, in the dark blue sectors is areas where we have made investments, the real estate and mining sectors, we have shied away from recently. But again, I think the trends are, it's focusing on, again, an upgrade cycle. You see, again, a rising middle class. You see people who want to eat better. They want to sleep better. They want to, again, they're focusing on their health care. So as we go through the models, I can get into some more examples, but you do find unbelievable, undervalued companies that are already listed. And that's part of what we do is we step in, we work with the management team. These companies typically have very low debt. We're dealing directly with the entrepreneurs. And the reason why they work with groups like ours is it's non-dilutive financing. If they had to go out and they had to sell more equity, again, that's the decision they're making. And that's the bridge that we get to, and then through that 1-2 year experience, their valuation could be 2 or 3 times higher. So open to questions, but that's my
I'll ask a question, then we're going to have a panel discussion and open up to the audience. What do you do about the issue of the rule of law and the challenges that people like you would think would have?
This is very timely. Last week, we were in our office and tear gas was going off at the LegCo building in Hong Kong. If you haven't seen the news, there was, again, recent weeks, we've had protests against the extradition law for what the Hong Kong government implemented. Again, I think this is a very, it's the backbone of our business. Again, Hong Kong is unique because, again, we have basic law, which is common law. And therefore, we also have the ability to have freedom of speech, and we have the ability to protest. But I think the things that have been implemented in this law are very dangerous because, again, if I come up and say something where, again, the Chinese government disagrees with my opinion on, again, a company or my view on the market or, again, just something I may have written in one of my reports, I could be extradited back to China. And literally, again, you have this worry. I mean, if you're a short seller in the market, so if Kyle Bass goes to Hong Kong and he's sitting in the Four Seasons Hotel, the Chinese government could walk in and just say, look, I'm just going to take him away. Those are things that you have to be very careful about. So again, it's 30% of the population in Hong Kong marched on Sunday. I think their protests scheduled for Thursday and Friday this week. It's very different from Occupy Central. Where I was there in 2014, and I've been in Hong Kong for 25 years. This is a very difficult situation, and I do think, again, many of my staff are local, are graduated from local universities. The universities are driving this. They're young people who are very frustrated. There are other issues that I think lend itself because, again, the Gini coefficient is just off the charts, and there's a tremendous gap between rich and poor. But it's that pressure about, again, Big Brother coming in, and all of a sudden the environment that we actually run our company on is eroded. I would have to move my business to Singapore. So,
and you're just talking about Hong Kong, let alone the rule of law when you do deals in China.
I mean, we understand, again, the concept of reliance just doesn't exist. And so, again, when you're really trying to structure a deal and saying, okay, I have this, again, concept where I think I have a precedent that's been established. You can't go back and say, okay, I can do this over and over again. But if you understand the legal infrastructure for doing deals in China, the enforcement process is actually very straightforward. Right, but again, you need to have, again, my partner he practiced, private equity law with Clifford Chance. My other partner practiced law with Asher's. I mean, it's a legal foundation that you have to work through. And that's why, again, rule of law is so important to our structures.
Thank you very much.